Live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. I believe it's the last day of YouTube jail for me. But I think I won't be going live on YouTube anymore, anyways. But I just finished a podcast with Dr. Fox with the CRPN network, and we talked about the huge demand from industry, from sites, CROs, and sponsors for needing more staff, and the huge supply of people without experience wanting to get jobs, and why there's a disconnect. And I think it boils down, there's a lot of factors, obviously it's complicated, but it boils down to laziness on both sides. It boils down to laziness on the candidate side, and it boils down to laziness on the employer side. It's just laziness all around. Sites, CROs, maybe sponsors are a little less guilty of this, but interestingly enough, 20 minutes before I jumped on Dr. Fox's podcast, I was on another I was on a pre-interview for another podcast we're going to be launching on somebody else's podcast about fake CRAs. And they're worried about, okay, there's all these fake candidates and CROs are somehow hiring them. And what can be done about this? And there's obviously that's a complicated topic too. I think it also boils down to laziness. So the CROs, you don't hear about this fake CRAs at the sponsor level. You just don't. You hear about it at the CRO level. And I think it has to do with demand. So obviously CROs are busier than ever. Sites are busier than ever. You also don't hear about these fake candidates at sites. So these fake candidates, I'm not saying they don't exist at the site level or the sponsor level. They probably some sneak in. But the majority of this problem is at the CRO level. And I think the CROs need to do a better job of due diligence. Uh, because they're so desperate for any experience that when they get a candidate that looks good on paper, they throw them through an interview process. Maybe someone else does the interview for them. And then the fact that the work tends to be remote, decentralized, so the work is, you're not actually like in an office like you are at a site, sometimes at sponsor levels. You can hide. And I have horror stories. You guys are gonna have to wait for that podcast. There's horror stories of fake CRAs doing interim monitoring visits and not knowing what the heck they're doing. So it boils down to laziness. Like why is this not an issue with sites, and why is this not really an issue with sponsors? Like if a fake CRC were to sneak through my interview process, it would never happen. But if they were on the first day on the job, we would know. And we hire typically entry level people with no experience anyway. So maybe it's a bad example, but you don't hear this at sites. You do not hear this at sites. Why? Because they have a due diligence process. Most sites are not, I don't actually think any site is the size of the average CRO. So you can hide in large companies. And it's laziness. Like let's analyze the CRO hiring process. You have an interview. Well, how do you know the person you're interviewing is the one you're looking at in front of a Zoom? There's mitigation factors there. Even before you interview them, what are some red flags you can spot on the resume? Like, do you recognize these companies? Are you looking them up on LinkedIn? I think the demand for staffing is all time high. A lot of this stuff, a lot of these rules are broken or corners are cut. in order to hire people on paper, and that's a laziness issue. And now from the job candidate side, the laziness issue really is doing the traditional things. So sitting behind your computer and applying to job boards when you are not qualified for those jobs is not a good idea. I mean, it's better than nothing because, like I said, the demand is so great right now for any kind of candidates that they may take a chance on you. Let's say you're an international medical graduate or you're a registered nurse and you're applying for roles that are well below your qualifications. You might get hired or at least get an interview by just sitting on job boards all day and post and clicking buttons. That one button approach to getting hired, it's better than nothing. But there's things you can do that are better and more effective as far as your outcomes are concerned. They're not more effective for your time, interestingly enough. So LinkedIn's one. You're probably watching this on LinkedIn. If you're watching this on Facebook or Twitter, that's great. Thank you. But you need to be on LinkedIn as well because LinkedIn in our industry is where networking happens. And how do you network? You don't just spam people. Again, that's the lazy approach. Clicking a button and copying and pasting a message to 100 people. I would say that's worse than doing nothing because you're getting ignored. People can tell when it's a copy and paste message. You can also click jobs on LinkedIn that you're underqualified for. When employers post jobs on boards, they are paying they are paying money to post. They do not want candidates that do not qualify for the minimum qualifications if they're paying for it. The jobs that are most likely to hire you are going to be jobs companies that are not posting. So that sounds crazy. Well, how do I know the unknown? LinkedIn. Depends where you're located. You can look for clinical research sites in Dallas. You can look for clinical research sites in Boise. You can look for clinical research sites anywhere you are. You can connect with those people on LinkedIn, the key decision makers. You can connect with their coordinators on LinkedIn. Sometimes you can network with them. Look at what they're posting, drop a comment. If you have a thoughtful comment, drop a comment so they know who you are. And then, this is the scary part, you got to actually go uninvited, unannounced, just show up at the clinic with your resume and say, hey, I watched this crazy guy on YouTube or on LinkedIn. He talked about what sites need. This is my background. This is what I can do. Dan told me sites need help getting patients. Sites need help getting dry ice. Sites need help passing out flyers in the community. Sites need help getting studies. Sites need help with data entry. Sites need help managing their social media. I can do this, and that. I'll even volunteer. Just let me build up my experience. This industry is crazy because once you get 3 to 12 months of experience at a site level, you are now highly desirable for at least other sites. But if you're punching up the career ladder, you start to become attractive for CROs, sponsors, vendors, things like that. That's all it takes. You're only research naive once. So to that's the hardest part of this industry is just getting started. Whether it's a career or starting your own business, that's the hardest part. Once you're in for life unless you do something really bad to where you become unemployable or you pick the wrong company, like the ones that do research on the bus, which you should get out of there as soon as possible, or whatever. There's always exceptions, there's always unicorns, there's always outliers. But getting that first job, so if you want non-traditional results, you need to do non-traditional things. You need to do things that are scary, getting out of your comfort zone, going in person, getting rejected. Rejection's normal part of the game, guys. If I were to apply, forget that I'm on YouTube and LinkedIn and a lot of people in the industry know me. Just forget that part. Pretend like I was just somebody with 17 years of coordinating experience. If I were to apply right now to 10, and I wouldn't have to go in person. I'm at the level, once you're with like 6 to 12 months of research experience, you don't no longer need to go in person. Although it doesn't hurt to do that either because you could get quick results that way. I could sit behind a computer and apply to jobs. If I were to apply to 10 jobs right now that I'm qualified for, I'd probably only hear back, if I'm lucky, from half. A lot of them may say, well, he's too overqualified, or why does he have 17 years experience and still wants to be a coordinator? Or he's a CRA, but he only had like 1 year of CRA experience, and there's like in between that, he's coordinator, CRA, back to coordinator. We don't like that history. It's too volatile. There's all kinds of reasons why, like, even an experienced person like myself would only get maybe 50% response from my applications. From those 50%, let's say I do all 5 of those interviews, I'm probably going to get 1 to 3 job offers. Maybe they didn't like my personality. Maybe they didn't like, there could be a number of things. That doesn't mean, like, that doesn't reflect on me that I'm not worthy. That just reflects that I'm not the right fit for that company. They thought someone else was better. So what? So if you have very little experience or no experience and you're applying to 10 jobs and you're not getting any replies, that shouldn't surprise you. Like, you need to go in person and do it. So don't let the rejections bring you down. The rejections are part of this industry. They're going to affect everyone at every level, no matter what. There's questions all the time. Whenever a company's paying money for an employee, that's money that could be profit for the shareholders or the owners. Instead, they're putting that money into you to hopefully produce even more profits for them. But the risk is you will produce no profits for them. The ultimate risk is you're a liability for them. So it makes perfect sense why companies are so careful in hiring, with the exception of the CROs. The CROs, I think that's a whole nother animal. They just need so much, they have so much demand right now as far as work that they're having a hard time keeping up with the hiring. So that's why fake candidates fall through the cracks. If you want to ask questions, first of all, happy St. Patrick's Day. I have green sweatpants on. Let's go do some shout outs. Drop some comments here. Miguel, how's it going from Miami? Miami's the capital of clinical research sites. I said it. Miami is the capital of clinical research sites. Cassandra Cass, our LICR ambassador. How's it going, Cass? Thank you so much. Miguel says, for me, a good CRA taking care of my site is always welcome and much appreciated. Yep. Hamu, hello, how's it going? Yanit, hello from Cape Coral, Florida. Nice to see you. Susan, hello. Karina, hello from London. So what do you guys think about this? Like, the reason why you're not getting the outcomes you want, I don't care who you are in this industry, whether you're a job seeker or whether you're an employer, the reason you're not getting the outcomes you want is usually due to laziness. Laziness can be, it's very vague, but you could break it down into, it's almost infinite components, and it usually you can find the common theme of being afraid, so fear. If you break down laziness, one component of it would be fear. And fear translates into not being willing to do what it would actually take to get the outcomes you want. If you're a job seeker, that's obvious what that means. You rather sit behind your computer than get out in person and get rejected in person. It's easier to get rejected online. If you're a CRO, the fear is we can't change our hiring process because that's going to slow down an already backed up pipeline. So that's fear too. But we need to work around these things, and it means all hands on deck, whether you're representing yourself as a candidate or whether you're representing an organization. We need to change some of the ways we approach doing business. And employment's a huge thing. I'm really happy I was able to be on Dr. Fox's podcast. And then we're going to be doing a fake CRA one with James on another podcast. I couldn't remember the name of it, but that's going to be next week. So, Hamid, how's it going? Karina, thank you so much. Karina Ordonez from North Carolina. Um, if you if guys, I'm happy to give advice too, like if you want to message me. um I do get busy, so I didn't forget about you. I get to everybody's emails or LinkedIn messages if they look good. um yes, so laziness is usually the reason for a lot of this stuff. Another form of, like, if you're a candidate, to not be lazy. First of all, if you have no experience, you need to educate yourself. Like, if you have zero experience and you want to work at a site, you need to educate yourself on what sites actually need. And so I have tons of YouTube videos where you can do it for free. I have that book on Kindle. It's only $3.99. A lot of the laziness starts not even from the action of going out and seeking or networking. It starts from educating yourself first. If you have no experience and you don't know the difference between a site, CRO, and a sponsor, you better get to learning. Like, you can't. It's one thing. Like, even if you were to go out to 100 sites in your area, if they see that you don't know the basics, right? It's a little less likely they're going to bring you on. But if they see that initiative, the hustle, and they see that you took the time to learn the basics, it's more likely they're going to say yes to you. And we have, if you want to pay, we have CRC Academy. We have the brand new CTA Academy, Clinical Trial Assistant Academy, that we just launched. So there's things out there, free or slight payments, to improve your chances. But you know what? The laziness thing is still an issue, even if you do our courses. Thank you, Hamid, CRC Academy for Research Naive. Guess what? You take the CRC Academy, you're going to learn what sites want. You're going to learn how to give sites what they want. You're still going to have to go out there and market yourself. And that doesn't mean sitting at home clicking a button. You can do that. That's, like I said, better than nothing. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. But you're increasing your chances by going out. Another thing you can do is go to conferences. I bash on organizations all the time, but SOCRA, ACRP, they have chapters, local chapters in most communities. You can go. A lot of times they're on Zoom or in person. You can go for free to ACRP or SOCRA local chapter meetups and network in person with people and just be honest. Say, hey, I want to be a coordinator. I know this is a CRA meeting, but those CRAs are there because they like to network. And a lot of times they were in your shoes. So they know what you should be doing. If you don't want to hear it all from me, hear it from others. By the way, my strategy is just one strategy. There's infinite ways to do this. I just can speak from what I know and what I believe in. But if you want to follow another blueprint, be my guest. Well, but what's keeping you from doing that? It's still laziness to some degree. Now, let's say you have a little bit of experience and you want to move on, either punch lateral, so to a new company that does the same thing as your previous company, or punch up, so from a site to a CRO, or from a site to a sponsor, or from a site to a vendor. It's still going to boil down to networking. It's still going to boil down to laziness. Amira says, hey, from Detroit, I think it's laziness to keep up with the times and not realize that the ways to network and seek jobs is dynamic and changing. Absolutely. I think entitlement is also a huge problem in our society, not just in clinical research. And people expect, just because they create a LinkedIn profile and they click buttons, that somebody's going to hire them. Doesn't work that way. Jesse Molina, how's it going? Hello from Chicago. I mean, here's an example of someone that's not lazy whatsoever. Jesse's actually in our CRA Academy. He can message him if you want to learn more about our CRA Academy. But yeah, Yenit says I completely agree. It's, and we're all guilty of it too. Like, I'm a site. I'm usually slightly overstaffed. I'm currently overstaffed, but we have 2 studies starting up, God willing, in the next month and a half. And if we enroll the way I think we can enroll, then I won't be understaffed. I'll be properly staffed. But why am I always slightly overstaffed? Because I know when you're bringing on entry level coordinators, you're taking a huge risk. So in return, you don't have to pay that much because they don't have experience. But once they've been doing it for a year, the grass sometimes looks greener on the other side. Maybe they want to do CRO, and I can't compete with what CROs pay. So I need to be overstaffed. And this is what I talked about on my episode with Dr. Fox on his podcast. Sites need to develop a farm system, just like baseball. Look at baseball teams. Okay, the Dodgers. The Dodgers are one of the best teams in baseball for the last 2 decades. Why? They have arguably the best farm system in all of baseball. Meaning, it's not the players we see on their actual team. They're great, but the majority of those players came from their farm system that they've drafted, that they've trained in their farm system, that they're developing for when their third baseman gets injured. They can call up the minor leagues and say, hey, bring him up. He's ready. Sites need to be doing the same thing. CROs, quite frankly, need to be doing the same thing. And again, this is why we have the CRC Academy. We can be your farm system for you if you're a site. We'll give group discounts if you have multiple students in it. If you're a CRO, we have the CRA Academy. A lot of the smart CROs, they're developing their own academies as well, although I've heard mixed reviews from people who actually been in those programs and then took ours. But at least they're on the right track to being a little less lazy. But apparently, there's still a bunch of fake CRAs out there, right? So let me know what you guys think about this. I think it's this topic needs to be discussed a lot more. This topic can be an all-day conference for if we break it down into all the stakeholders. But it boils down to the individual level, and it boils down, like, even organizations. What are they? They're individuals. And if you're a candidate, you're obviously an individual as well. So there's something about the effort that usually works. And there's something about fear and hesitancy. Like, laziness, I think, is a cousin of fear, or it's like slightly upstream from fear, because we're programmed as humans, from an evolutionary standpoint, to not trigger our fight or flight response, right? So we try to do what we can to maintain homeostasis, and that means not putting yourself out for risk. Now, when you go out to a site, you're not walking out in the jungle and have to worry about getting eaten by a tiger. But the feeling of being told, no, why are you here? We don't want solicitors here, which you're inevitably going to get if you use this strategy, triggers that same fight or flight response. So we know this, so we train ourselves to not do this. And absolutely, Jesse, laziness comes from the companies. They, like the CROs, super lazy when it comes to hiring because they have, first of all, it's not their money, it's sponsor money, but they have all this backup demand. They can't fill enough spots. So they cut corners, they hire, they have like shoddy training programs. I'm not saying anyone in particular, just as a group. And I think they need to focus on their hiring practices and their own farm system too. Uh, Jesse says laziness comes from companies too. Imagine cookie cutter GCP level for CRCs, CRAs, and then they make costly mistakes later. Exactly, Jesse. You're in the CRA Academy. In our training, I mean, we have the mandatory GCP and IATA that you have to do, but that's the cookie cutter. Everything else is the nitty gritty, the nuances of what it is to be a CRA. And when you get to the internship, even more so, write the report. Same thing in our CRC Academy. Um, absolutely. Miguel says, I like the way you communicate your ideas and always learning new from you in this constantly changing world of research. Thank you, Miguel. I appreciate it. By the way, site owner, message me like we need to do podcasts. I'm trying to get more site owners on. Patricia says, Hi, Dan. I agree with you on the fear factor being a component of laziness. Rejection is difficult, but your approach is helpful. You don't speak about age, older candidates in these roles, despite experience. So, Patricia, I'm glad you brought this up, and I like that you have your title in your so registered nurse. You know, you probably don't need, if you're a registered nurse, you probably don't need to go to that many sites in person. Doesn't hurt. You'll probably get quicker results that way, but you can just be on LinkedIn, message sites in your community, and say, hey, I'm a RN, would love to start out part time or even as a volunteer. I know you guys might be busy. I can help you with anything, but my specialties are this. I can immediately step in and do these things as an RN. Happy to do it on a very part time basis or even as an intern. Give me like 1 month, however long you're comfortable doing the part time or interning thing. And if you don't like it, then no harm, no foul. Um, at least I get some experience on my resume. And if you do, which I think you will, I'm happy to work here because I want, this is what I want for my role. And at the sites, it's not usually going to be necessarily for the money. Like everyone has a benchmark they need to hit for their minimal uh, income that they need, but people don't really work at sites for the money for the most part. If you're senior enough, it's the site's job to compensate you appropriately to keep you, and you can make good money at the site level once you get some seniority. But at the entry level, it's not about the money, it's about the future prospects and just maintaining that baseline so that you can continue your career progress. So older, younger, doesn't matter. RN is a RN, Patricia, and you've got a lot, right? I don't know if it's talking about yourself or others in your shoes, but you've got a lot of experience, even if it's transferable skills. But especially if it's anything clinical related, you've got a lot. And Hamu says we tend to avoid discomfort. Absolutely. So that's it, guys. If there's anything else, let me know. I've got a day of a bunch of Zoom calls and happy to talk to you guys off air, but just wanted to go live and share this with you guys. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Happy Friday, guys. Have a good weekend.